Next up in my series of underrated movies, this is one I might be embarrassed to admit I like, but I don't care. I'll put myself out there. It's Captain Underpants, the animated movie from 2017. Here's why I think it's actually pretty good. Coming up next. Captain Underpants is based on a series of children's sort of comics books, and then they made a movie about it, and this movie is pulling terribly on the internet. 6.2 out of 10 on IMDb. That is ridiculously low, and I really can't figure out why. I find this movie to be quite imaginative, and it's a movie about kids being imaginative versus the school that's kind of shutting down their imagination. And of course, one of the conceits of this movie, I think you have to take this into consideration, which begins with the DreamWorks opening credits, is that there are two 8-9-year-old kids who are making a movie. In other words, these kids have full control of the movie, including the DreamWorks credits. And therefore, you're entering the fantasy or imaginative world of two 8 to 9-year-olds. And of course, these are 9-year-old boys. They're going to have a lot of potty humor, so I just took that for granted when I watched the movie. The two kids are voiced by Kevin Hart and Thomas Middleditch. I really like that pairing of voices. George and Harold are their names, and they've created, in their tree house, a comic book series, a superhero series, and it's totally derivative of all the superhero series you've ever heard of, called Captain Underpants. And it's deliberately stupid, deliberately goofy, but they love it, and they love the imaginative, creative aspect of making these books, which I find effective in this movie. Problem is they have to go to school, and at school, unfortunately, is this horrible, awful principal. And by the way, everything in this movie is totally over the top because, again, it's from the perspective of two 8-9-year-old boys. This principal, though, is voiced by Ed Helms, is a really nasty figure. And these boys, through a lot of machinations, are able to hypnotize their principal to become their own superhero, thereby acting out their own fantasies, their own fictional worlds in their reality. So with the snap of their fingers, these two kids can, change their principal from total jerk, a la the principal in Ferris Bueller's Day Off, which this movie is quoting endlessly, into their own fantasy superhero who does ridiculous things and might even hurt himself. Later in the movie, because this is obviously a superhero movie or a spin-off or an 8 or 9-year-old's version of a superhero movie, we have a supervillain come in and he becomes a school science teacher. He's hiding out. It's Professor P. To me, this is a nod to classic noir, like Orson Welles' The Stranger, bizarrely enough, where these German scientists come over the United States and are operating in secret, and we have an over-the-top Nazi kind of scientist figure voiced by Nick Kroll. I absolutely love this voicing. However, I know it will annoy a lot of people, but I think it's funny, and he makes a lot of great pointed comments about the school systems in the U.S.
Yeah, that's basically what I've been up to, so here I am, applying for a job in the thriving public school system with all of its amazing resources.
Anyway, Professor P, as he's called, the kids find out his name is Professor Poopy Pants. Now, yes, in this movie, you have to put up with a lot of potty humor. I personally don't find potty humor funny. I kind of never have. Yet, in this movie, I kind of get engaged by it. I mean, it's at least the stupidest, most over-the-top potty humor ever, with a gigantic toilet in the movie, which is in one sense a threat, but in the other sense, it's kind of hilarious if you're in the mood to laugh along with the movie. Now, besides the zippy animation and a lot of witty stuff, albeit from the perspective of these two kids, I find some of the subject matter really important. It, dovetails in with a lot of important 20th century psychology, social science observations, even the question of brainwashing. Can you brainwash a person? Can you get another person to do what they want? That is a giant question in marketing, in political discourse, in sham preaching, in religions, and a number of other areas of life. Can you control other people with your mind, with hypnotism? And this movie, the kids get the power to do so. That's like young people figuring out how to control an adult they don't like. And at first they can manipulate him to do whatever they want. Later in the movie, I actually like the moral, outcomes in this movie and the ethical choices where they've got to think hard about, should I really be controlling this guy we don't really like and is really rude and controlling to us? Or should we just let him go? And that's an interesting question. It comes up in all kinds of 20th century literature. 1984 is one of the classic, books about this, but on and on and on. And so I find this topic that this movie is invested in to be pretty profound, and the movie is good, in my opinion, on this topic itself. Therefore, the movie can be watched as just a stupid romp with little kids, although the warning is, if your kids are prone to potty humor, you may not want to skip this movie, and maybe that's some of the reason why why the ratings for this movie are so low, parents being annoyed by this movie being ridiculous potty humor. But, my family, we don't care about that much. We don't laugh at it hardly at all, so we don't make fart jokes all the time. Therefore, this movie is like a different spin on our lives, and frankly enough, potty humor goes way back to classical satire. Jonathan Swift uses a lot, for example, in Gulliver's Travels, so I don't have a problem with using it if it's done in an interesting way. And I think in this movie, given what these kids are up to and how the movie is framed, as from the perspective of 8 or 9-year-old kids, what if 8 or 9-year-old kids made a feature-length DreamWorks movie? This is the movie we get. So all in all, I do like this movie a lot better than everybody else, as it seems. Do you? Let me know why I'm wrong, or maybe right, in the comments. Please subscribe to this channel for more great content. Thanks, and have a great day.